Well, here we are again, and if you've seen this one, that means you've logged in, you've signed up, and if you made a donation, thank you very much. I promise it will go to good use. Now let me explain a little why I'm doing this and how I got here. Now, if you had asked me a year ago if I would ever do a video online or a video of any kind that would be shown to people, I'd have told you were out of your rabbit ass mind. It ain't happening. I don't do it. I don't like my picture being taken. I don't like being on camera. Which is kind of ironic because I went to school at one point for broadcasting, which part of that is on camera. I did it, didn't like it, but, it is what it is, and I really didn't like it. I liked it even less after having seen myself on camera. Why? Well, because I'm not a small guy. I'm a big guy. And frankly, fat people on camera look pretty silly, at least in my opinion. And, I've never really been fond of my looks or anything, despite the fact of having people over the years tell me much to the contrary. Always had a very low self-esteem, and that kind of carried over, and just never liked being on camera. Now, when I was a kid, when I was little, that was different because, I was the kid you'd see making faces at the camera when they were taking pictures. Even in boot camp, I had a cockeyed grin on my face and my head was tilted sideways when they told us to stand at attention and face forward. No, I couldn't do that. I had to be silly. And they kept it. The way I ended up here and decided to start doing videos is kind of interesting. I alluded to the fact in the intro video that I've had brushes with death in my past, and I did die once. Should have been dead at least 5 other times that I can think of off the top of my head. But I survived it all, and I'm still here. So, 9 years ago, in February of 2010, I was driving semi cross-country for a less than truckload company, LTL for short, out of Ohio. I was working for an owner-operator. I had started there in January, late January, with my adopted sister's husband. We were running team because that's what the company required. And we did this with the intention of we would take half the money for paying our bills and living on, and the other half that we made would go towards buying our own truck. And we would repeat that process till we had a fleet of 5 or 6 trucks. From there, we would build our own company. Yeah, that didn't work out so well. I ended up having to kick him off the truck on a run out to San Francisco. Luckily, we lived in Reno at the time, so Reno to Frisco is by truck 8 hours. So I scheduled it so that the end of his driving time was when we hit Reno. And while he was in taking a shower, my sister met me at the truck, and I gave her all of his stuff, and I basically fired him on the spot because he was doing things that I just couldn't tolerate and would not tolerate, and I wasn't going to lie for him to cover his actions with my sister. Just ain't doing it. He put me in a position of I had to choose between him and her, and he lost. So I go and deliver in Frisco, and they send me back to Ohio to pick up another co-driver that the owner of the truck had hired. And they had me run a few runs for a few days by myself, Ohio to Chicago, Chicago back, things like that. Nothing really spectacular, so pay kind of suffered during that transition period. But when we got a new driver, he hired a woman, and she was friendly and nice, and I thought, okay, this is going to work. She wasn't bad looking for an older lady, because she was close to my age. We take a run to Boston, and while we're in Boston waiting for our return load, she calls the owner and tells him that I supposedly told her that if she didn't sleep with me, I was going to kick her off the truck. Well, anyone who knows me around women back then knew I was just way too damn shy to even go there. Just wasn't going to happen. So we get back to Ohio, back to the yard, and the owner fired both of us on the spot. No exception. Dropped us both like a hot rock. Well, she immediately jumped on another truck with another guy, driver I knew. And that lasted 2 days. He calls me up 2 days later and says, "This bitch is fucking crazy." So, lesson learned there. Yeah, stay away from female co-drivers unless you're related, married, or dating. And dating, kind of questionable. But I sat there and I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm in Ohio, don't know anyone, nowhere to go. I got enough money on me to rent a car, and I can either go back to Reno or I could go to Chicago, but I really didn't have anywhere to go here in Chicago because my brother made it very clear when I moved out back in '98, after helping him and stuff, and I understood his point. He just really didn't want someone living there. He was kind of anal that way, and he just, I don't know how to explain it, but he is what he is. He's a special critter. My sister-in-law had called because I was supposed to be coming up in a couple days for some time off to visit. And I told her what happened, and she says, hang on a minute. Comes back on the phone and says, how long will it take you to get here? And that's how I ended up back in Illinois. And trust me, I don't like Illinois. Beautiful countryside. Chicago's got a lot of things that I like, but I hate big cities. I hate being so close to my neighbors that I can spit on them. And frankly, the Democrats have run this state into the bloody ground. Illinois may actually go down as the first state in history to go bankrupt. And that's really saying something. But I end up here, and I hook up with a guy I know, and he's going to hire me, give me a truck. I run local, and I'm home every couple days. Yeah, well, when I went to go take my physical, they said, nope, you fail. Took my physical away, and I can't drive anymore. Can't drive commercial truck. And I'm like, oh, hell, what do I do now? I don't want to go back into IT. I hate corporate America. And I've been out of IT so long, no one's going to hire me. So I went over to Home Depot, took a job, just for something to do, make some money, because I've never really gone without work. I've always worked since I was 10 years old. And I worked this job from March, middle of March, somewhere around the middle of March to middle of May. And I'm doing the job, and I'm working at the paint department and doing all the stuff that's required there. And me being me, I got them, before my 90-day probationary period is up, I got them to train me and certify me for the forklift, which I have been driving forklifts for years. Got them to train me for the picker, certify me for the picker, I should say, so that I could do more and hopefully get more hours. Well, discovered a problem. My knees and my back could not take standing on that concrete 8 hours a day. Well, May 1st, remember the day, this woman comes in, short little Filipino, not bad looking, kind of cute, comes in and starts yelling at me, literally yelling at me, that she got the wrong color paint. She gave me a sample of what she wanted, and I color matched it, made her a new gallon, and noticed on the lid of the paint that she brought me that it was from the Volo store, not our store. And I kind of chuckled and said, okay, no problem, here. Have your paint. You know, customer service, keep them happy. And then I asked her questions like, okay, is there anything else I can help you with? And she said, well, I've never really painted before. What else do I need to do this right? And I said, well, what kind of project are you doing? And we went through that. And I went through and helped her pick up all the stuff she needed, including primer, because she didn't bother to get primer, and nobody told her about primer. And helped her pick out the right brushes and the rollers and stuff to do the job right, because she had just bought the house and she was painting the living room this color. And okay, cool. And I said, now, if you need any help, let me know. And I gave her my phone number, so, you know, because we're not supposed to do that. They're afraid we're going to take work away from the contractors that we have deals with. So we're not supposed to solicit the help, but, you know, don't know why, just did it. Probably one of the boldest things I'd done in years, sober. I have to preface that. It's one of the boldest things I ever did when it came to women, sober. When I'm drinking, I can get a little stupid in public around women. Okay, I can get a lot stupid, which is why I don't get drunk in public anymore. Ever. So, a couple weeks goes by, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to hear from her. No big deal. Saturday morning, she comes walking in like she's on a mission. And she's like, well, I'm really glad you're here. I lost your number. I'm like, okay. So I gave it to her again. She called me when I got off work. We talked. I think it was Monday night we went out to dinner. And we were pretty much inseparable after that. When she wasn't working or I wasn't working, we spent a lot of time together. Now, I'm still dealing with the fact that I don't have health insurance because I'm still a probationary at Home Depot. I'm in excruciating pain. I can't take it anymore. So I talked it over with my brother and sister-in-law, who I'm staying with still. And I'm like, okay, what do I don't know what to do. And my brother's like, you can't, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You can't keep doing this if you can't walk after the end of the day. So I gave my 2-week notice. And about 4 days later, Letty shows up. She had put me on her health insurance at her work without telling me. So now I got health insurance. Now she makes me start going to doctors. And that was the mistake. The doctors, went through a whole lot of them, determined that I was permanently disabled for a lot of reasons. So we got the paperwork, we filed for disability, which put me through another ringer of doctors. And after 2 years, they finally approved it. Or 3 years. Is it 3 years? Not 2.5 years. It finally got approved. But anyhow, let's go back. All these doctors that I had seen had diagnosed me with neuropathy, both legs, back, arms, carpal tunnel in both wrists, severe, by the way, severe, required surgery, never did it, thank God, arthritis through most of my body, fibromyalgia through my back and my legs, my gallbladder exploded, had a serious bout of pancreatitis, all in 2010. Early 2011, they diagnosed me with COPD and chronic bronchitis. And by a year later, I was getting pneumonia on average every 3 months. Without fail, I would get pneumonia. Bad enough that they would put me in the hospital for it. And I would always spend 3-4 days, sometimes a week, in the hospital being pumped full of drugs and antibiotics and steroids and other crap to clean it up. Well, after 8 years of this, going into 8 years of it, it was just starting the 8th year, I was getting so sick so often that I couldn't do anything. Now, mind you, the summer before, I had started driving for Lyft and Uber, kind of to make some extra money, trying to get off of disability, because disability doesn't pay a hell of a lot. Not much you can do with $900 a month. And I'm a workaholic by nature. Sitting around doing nothing is not my idea of how to spend my time. And after they closed down online poker, I lost my way to make money. So, decided to do that. Late December, early January, I just got so sick so frequently. I mean, I'd go out and 2 days later, I'm laid up in bed or in the hospital. End of February comes along, and my pulmonologist looks me straight in the face and says, well, dude, you now have emphysema, and I give you somewhere between 4 months and maybe 6 years. Can't really say, but I would get your affairs in order. You're done. I appreciated the bluntness, but this was different for me than every other time I faced death, because 90% of the time when I faced death, it was either circumstances or choice. But this time it was my body just saying, Screw you, we're done. We're out of here. Well, some friends, particularly one friend, Kirk, when he found out, said, oh, hell no, we're not taking this, we're not accepting this. So he started a GoFundMe page, raised the money because I couldn't afford to go, so that I could go up to Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. And insurance pays for the treatments and the testing, but what it doesn't pay for is the travel, the hotel, the food while you're there. And that was an unknown variable. I had no idea how much it was going to cost. I had no idea how long I was going to be there. First time I went up, I called them in August, first part of August. And they said I had been accepted after going through the application process. They called me up a few days later, said I'd been accepted. And they scheduled me for late October for my initial intake. The very next morning, they called me up and said, can you be here on this date? And it was a week and a half away. Well, yeah, I was there. I went. Thought it was a sign. You know, Bill Engvall, here's your sign. Yeah, well, it was a sign. I get up there. My wife goes with me. We're there for the first 2 days, which is a Thursday and Friday. And it's just before Labor Day weekend. So they do all the initial tests, and by the end of the day Friday, they had already rescheduled me for 2 more weeks following Labor Day. So we went camping with some friends like we usually do. And I was kind of nervous because I never really heard of them moving that fast on things unless it was critical. So I get back there, and Tuesday morning they put me through a whole shitload of tests. I mean, I spent the next 6 days, work days, just being poked, prodded, scanned, x-rayed. Everything you could think of, they did to me. Well, when my final day came along, which was the Friday, 2 Fridays following Labor Day, the primary care assigned to my case kind of smiles and looked at me and he says, well, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, okay, what's the bad news? He says, you're not dying. At least not yet anyways. I said, I thought that would be the good news. And he goes, no, the good news is you don't have anything they told you you had except the arthritis and the fibromyalgia. That's the only thing they got right. And those weren't killing me. Turns out, all the stuff they had me on, for the neuropathy, for the pain, for the bronchitis and the COPD, all of that stuff they were giving me is what was killing me. And it was killing me very slowly and painfully. I mean, by the end of it, I got to where I couldn't walk up 1 flight of stairs without stopping to catch my breath halfway up. I couldn't walk across a room without feeling and sounding like I had just run a mile. So Mayo at that point didn't really know what was wrong with me and what was causing the problems, but they knew it wasn't what I had been getting treated for. So they told me stop all these meds, redid my meds, and cut me from 24 medications to 3. 2 at the time, actually, just 2. They didn't add the 3rd one until October. So I go back in October. They do an MRI. And the MRI is no major damage, nothing remarkable to speak of. But they did notice that I've had some issues in the past. What they classified as mild strokes, which means depending on where they happen, they may or may not affect you. About all you feel is a sharp pain in your head that basically goes away after a few hours. Well, had that a few times. Never paid attention to it, never worried about it. Turns out one of them was in the area of the brain that controls equilibrium and balance, which is why I have to walk with a cane, because I periodically just lose my balance. I fall over, I get dizzy, and there's no explanation for it other than that. Now, they think they're still operating under the assumption that I may have CTE, Charlie Tango Echo, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or encephalopathy. I can't ever pronounce that last word. Look it up. It's the thing that here in the States we're making a big deal about because football players are dying of it. Well, they're not really dying of it. They're dying because of it, kind of. But it's such a new illness that they're finding, they just can't diagnose it yet until you're deceased and they take a brain sample. So they've asked me for permission to do that when I pass away, and I said, sure, why not? I'm not going to need it. So I go into November not dying. The only thing I really have that could kill me is I have 4 plugged arteries around my heart. 30 to 40% blockage. They're concerned, but they're not hyper concerned. They're trying to treat it with medication, see if it goes down. If it goes down, they're happy and they'll leave it alone. But if it doesn't, or it gets larger, they're going to go in and clean it out, because the one they're worried about the most is the left descending, which is 40% plugged. But there's still more than 50% blood flow going through, so they're not rushing into it, because, well, frankly, I'd rather they don't cut me open and play with my heart. Been cut open enough times. Besides, they might get in there and find out I don't have one. So after that realization wore off, it dawned on me that I had my life back. But I had no immune system because of what the doctors here in Illinois had been doing to me. They had completely destroyed my immune system. When I was tested in September the first time, I didn't even register on the scale for immune globins. By the end of October, I think I'd gone up 1 point, which means it was just kind of touching the scale, but it wasn't even, it wasn't even touching. It was just gone up like 1.1 or 0.2, something like that. So I'm still fighting that. I have to be careful who I'm around, which means if I want to go back to work, I can't work in an office building. I can't work around people. I can't work retail. And my bright ass, my dumb ass, I thought, well, I'll go back to driving. Deliver food. I'm not going to be around people that long or that much. I can do that. Yeah, nobody liked that idea. Had something to do with the fact that Mayo really doesn't want me driving more than 2 hours by myself, because we don't know how my head's going to react. Some days are good, some days are bad, up and down. So I drive down to my attorney's office, and, ironically, I live up by the Wisconsin state line, and my attorney is down in Homewood, way down south, 80 miles away to be precise. So I call him up. I go down there, drop my wife at work, drive down to his office. I'm not feeling real hot. My head's kind of hurting. And I decide, I thought I was going to be at the office for like half an hour or hour at least. That's usually how attorneys' offices go. Yeah, no. I was in and out of there in like 15 minutes. So I called up my buddy Angelo, who doesn't live too far away. And I said, you want to meet me for lunch? He did. We met. I spent, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours there with him. We talked, visited for a while. And the reason being is I was trying to get some rest. I was trying to rest my head because I was getting dizzy while I was driving, and my headache was getting worse. So I thought I was okay. The headache had gone away and the dizziness had gone away, and I thought I was good. So I got back in the car and I started driving back towards home because I had several hours till my wife was going to get off work. Yeah, no, that didn't work. I think I was driving for about 20 minutes and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like I was trying to drive drunk. Now, I'm stoned.